You cannot out-imagine perception. You can only feel and imagine what you already perceive. It is the biology of your energy, of your mind, of your brain, of the chemicals. So we first perceive to receive so that we can imagine to send it out.
You are listening to Personal Development Mastery Podcast, providing those with a desire to grow with the simple, consistent actions needed to master personal development and create the life they yearn for. I'm your host, 𝗁𝗁𝗲𝗄𝗧𝗦. A few years ago, I found myself unfulfilled and unmotivated, like I had lost my sense of purpose and my life was merely passing by. Since then, I've been on a continuous journey of personal development that has transformed every aspect of my life. Now, my mission is to inspire you to grow, stand out, and take action towards a purposeful and fulfilling life. In this podcast, I invite myself inside the minds of remarkable entrepreneurs, authors, thought leaders, spiritual teachers, people who share their journey, milestones, and learnings for you to be inspired to grow. In each episode, you will find practical action points that you can implement right now, so make sure you follow the podcast to get them as soon as they are released. Today's episode is about manifesting miracles into your life. It's about taking a possibility and transforming it into reality. Enjoy this captivating conversation. In today's episode, I am delighted to be joined by Victoria Rader, who is a possibility coach and 8 times best-selling author, transformational speaker, and has a PhD in metaphysical studies. Victoria, welcome to the show, and this is the 3rd time that we meet in a podcast. I'm so happy, I'm overjoyed to speak with you today.
Oh, and it is so joyful for me. It's like homecoming, So we will have a gorgeous, gorgeous, beautiful value, I think, that'll be born today for you, for me, and for that soul that is seeking and will find a miracle today. I truly believe that.
Me too. Now I also believe that, and I also said this intention earlier on, so this is brilliant. I will very quickly, just as a preface, I will say for the listener that I first met you when I came as guest in your podcast that you had at that time, All About the Voice, and then you came as guest in my podcast last year, and you were episode 234. And we had spoken then about abundance, wealth, and prosperity. It was when you released your book, Prosper Me, 35 Universal Laws to Make Money Work for You. And that has been one of the very popular episodes of the podcast. So here we are again, having another conversation.
I'm thrilled, Agi.
We'll talk about manifesting miracles today, among other things. Before we start with that, can you give me like a brief overview? How was your journey between the last time we spoke on the podcast and now? You had just released the Prosper Me book. How has that been for you, and what has happened since?
Well, for the lack of sounding cheesy, which I will, it's been miraculous. It continues to be miraculous. The purpose for that book was such a genuine yearning in my heart to show people that they're worthy of a fulfilled, stable, and prosperous life, and to show them step by step how to get there, not theoretically only, but practically, walking the journey that I have walked. It's not a perfect journey, but hopefully for somebody, it would have eliminated their mistakes. And to have now received hundreds of clients I have some people, some readers that are on the 3rd time of reading that book. And as they're reading it, there are new layers being peeled for them. And there's the new layers that are being peeled for them for their soul. New financial opportunities are opening for their prosperity financially. And yet there's no confusion between the order of the two. that the money is simply framing the person they're becoming. That's the purpose for money. Money's job is to create a foundation for you to walk on as the person you're becoming. And that is what that book has been intended to do. And I genuinely sob with every note I get where there is yet another person that remembers who they are, starts living as who they are, and allows for money to come to support their journey. Well, and then there's a ton of products, new team members and all of that, but that's secondary that came in.
That's amazing. I like what you just said about framing the person you're becoming. And I think the word become is a key here, because from my own experience and my own journey in personal development, it's all about who you become. What you do and what you have are only results of the becoming bit. So it's the becoming we must focus our efforts, I think. And I will give, let's say, a connection to today's conversation. And actually, before I do that, I will only add a quick comment about your book. You said that many people are on the third read. I have also read it 3 times, not in its entirety. The first time it was in its entirety, but when I read, I highlight. So then I go back and read what I have highlighted, which takes much less. And yeah, I can really testify about that the book has many layers. The topic of money, I think, is probably more pertinent than ever, the way that the global situation is. So yeah, I'm just saying that I really believe what the book has been very insightful. That's all I will say. And coming back to what I started earlier, I was reading your newsletter a few months ago, and you were talking about manifesting. And there was something that when I read it, it really caught my attention. It dragged me to it and said, I really want to have a conversation about this on the podcast, because it is a topic that it's not very well known. And that topic was about manifesting, and that's what I will ask you in a moment. And you were saying that many, shall we say, manifesting schools begin with imagination. Say, imagine what you want as if you already have it and feel the feeling, which is very difficult. But anyway, imagining is one thing. Having the feeling is an extra layer. But let's say, even if we manage to do that, it doesn't seem to be working very well. So, and you were saying that it is how we perceive ourselves that the bottom line of what will manifest. So that was really my trigger for this conversation. So let's talk about manifesting, and let's talk about, let's start actually with what I just said about imagination and how that is not enough to manifest.
This is such a deep question, Agi, that I will give one aspect and we'll develop it through the conversation.
Of course.
Different people define manifestation differently. And it's very important to know how you define something in order to refine it. Okay, so let's start there. So I define manifestation very simply. It is taking a possibility and transforming it into reality. That's my very basic, very simplified understanding of manifestation. Now, what it means is that you and I and every person who is a part of our conversation is already a master manifester. We come as master manifestors. We are not learning to manifest in this journey. We're learning to be aware of what we're manifesting, aligned with what we would rather manifest, act with that alignment so that we can enjoy the process of manifestation. What do I mean by that? Possibilities are infinite. Possibilities for greatness are infinite. And we all know, in the darkness of our own soul, possibilities for imagining something horrible are also infinite. We've all gone down that path. We've all mastered manifesting. I hope it won't happen. I hope it won't happen. I hope oh my gosh, I knew it would happen. What am I going to do? Right? So we manifest either the deepest of our fears or the greatest of our aspirations, whatever we're most aligned with the energy of who we are. We manifest through the dominant vibration. The dominant vibration of who we are tunes us to the possibilities within that realm. So our first opportunity in life is to gently and with self-acceptance to say, how do I feel most of the time? That is what I'm manifesting in my life. So I'm just going to observe my day without prejudgment so I can actually love myself to learn enough about who I am right now. And you just spend one day giving yourself a luxury that you deserve, watching what you experience and understanding, perceiving yourself first without judgment, without jumping to healing, without actions to do. You're giving yourself a luxury of time that the world is screaming at you, saying there is no time for you. So you're going to stop the world and you're going to say, I have time to pay attention to me. Like, feel the power of that phrase. I have time to pay attention to me. That's where you begin the process of aware manifesting, right?
You said about the dominant vibration of who we are. And then you said, how do I feel most of the time? Would you say that they are equal? That is, the dominant frequency is how we feel most of the time?
Yes. Yes, that's simple. That's simple.
Yeah, because, the term dominant frequency can leave some uncertainty. So what is that? But how we feel most of the time, I think it's a matter of just looking inwards and observing what's going on. I think we know it. We just need to pay attention to it.
It's fascinating that you asked that question. As you have pointed out in our pre-conversation that, you've seen the article by Bob Proctor on Six Mental Faculties. Yeah. And I had a luxury to have Bob Proctor as my personal coach. And so the concept of Six Mental Faculties, I've learned from Bob and then developed into a system. And there was one thing that Bob and I were not aligned in. Bob's idea of manifesting was you have to be at that feeling, at that frequency, at all expense and nothing else. And I pondered on it for years, not for months, for years, saying, that's not how it's been in my life. All it takes, and I taught statistics, is 51%. If you're 51% hopeful and joyful and serving and giving, you are a person at that dominant frequency. And then 49%, you get to experience powerful human emotion without self-judgment and saying, oh my gosh, I just had a bad thought, so now I will never have a home of my dreams. Great. You are a failure. That would be my one thing of why I say the dominant frequency, because it'll give you a permission to realize, okay, either you'll say, I thought I was much more optimistic than I am, so maybe I just need a little bit of hope. Or you'll say, I'm actually doing well. So what do I do now with knowing that I'm doing well? And then there are next steps.
Right. So the first step then is to start feeling good most of the time, which is as little as 51%. It is literally, it's most.
Yes.
It's most of it. So what is the next step though? Because that's on its own is not enough. There are people who are very happy generally and they know it, but they have not manifested what they want.
They don't know what they want. That's the next step. We will never manifest what we think we want, what somebody else told us we want, what we guilt trip ourselves to want, what the culture insists we want, what our great-grandmother through our genetics says we must want. We will not manifest it. And if we do, we will lose it to learn that we were not meant to have it. So There are 4 questions that you want to discover to get to the sacred self of who you are, to know what it is that you actually want. The first question, what is it that I want? You sit down, you write all the answers, you allow for all the answers to come through, for all of them. Big, little, just do 3 to 5 minutes. What is it that I want? Allow for everything to come through. It's very important. Don't skip it. It's the outer layer of consciousness. What is it that I want? Then you're going to write down question number 2. What is it that I want the most? And now you're bringing into focus what it is that you want the most. You're going to write that down. Okay, great. Now the third question is where the rubber meets the road. You're going to say, what outcomes do I want? We don't manifest things. We manifest outcomes that create things. What outcomes do I want? Because you see, when you say I want to have a new car, it's not the car that you want. It's either recognition or comfort. What is the outcome you want? Nobody is judging you. What is it that you want as an outcome? And the final 4th question is going to be, what is the outcome I want the most? And once you tune in to the inner of knowing of what your soul, I call it sacred me, what your sacred me is attuned to manifest through you at this moment, which is that greatest outcome, then and only then you can create that outcome and witness miracles of everything else that you didn't even know you wanted, that are bringing you immense joy.
Mm-hmm. This is such an important point that you just made now, Victoria. I suppose every person will have their own interpretation in their mind of what you just said. But for me, it is what you said about the outcome and what exactly do I want, the exact outcome that I want. It goes beyond imposed ideas or fantasies or things like, that since I'm manifesting, let me put that into the mix as well, like an exotic island or whatever it is that, many people have in common. Can we go back now? Because you were talking about imagination.
Yes.
Where does imagination connect with what we have discussed so far? Is it the next step or is it even further down the line of this?
Love it. I love it. So what we've described are the practical steps for bringing into awareness the first mental faculty. So what is that? For years I've taught on mindset, and usually it is growth mindset, blah, 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 blah. And so finally I said, okay, girls, sit down. What is mindset? It's good that you're teaching on it. What is mindset? And it became very clear to me that mindset is not something that is set. Yes, it is growing, but it is a set of something. Mindset, set of something. And that's when the bridge was created to, I remembered Bob Proctor teaching me on 6 Mental Faculties. And that spark came on immediately and I said, oh, wait a minute. Mindset is a set of 6 mental faculties. Those 6 mental faculties, if they're harmonized, will create a sacred life of miracles. If they're in agony, competition, or lack of cooperation, they create the life of scarcity. It's still a mindset for manifesting. But if they're aligned and they're working to support each other, we have miracles. If they're misaligned, we have misery. So we create everything through either a part of us that is scared, the scared me, or the part of us that is sacred, right? The sacred me, little ambiguity. I'm so very big on that little matter energy thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's look at that from that perspective. First of all, what are the 6? We talked about perception and we talked about imagination. So those are the first 2. I'll name them and then I'll go back to the depths of your question. Perception, imagination, intuition, reason, memory, and will are the 6 mental faculties. So one of those, you were like, what is that for somebody? Or one of them triggered you. That's the one we want to heal. The one that you're like, you don't need that. 5 is plenty. That's how you know, I don't need that one. Okay, that's how you know. So in this picture, what we've started describing in depth was the perception. You perceive what you want. You perceive how you see reality. You want to shift to perceiving the life for the miracle that it already is. Why? Because perception is allowing things in, and it creates receptors for allowing things in, so that imagination can send out. You cannot out-imagine perception. You can only feel and imagine what you already perceive. It is the biology of your energy, of your mind, of your brain, of the chemicals. So we first perceive to receive so that we can imagine to send it out. So we've all heard dream big dreams. You can think big dreams, but to feel them, those dreams have to support your self-image. The word imagination comes from your self-image. Your self-image is the expression of your connection to your infinite self-worth. It's a tender, gorgeous realization. As you understand who you infinitely are, and by the way, perception of what's the most important outcome was guiding you to get to know who that sacred self is. As you get to truly lean into who you are, then you step into that being, and then you can imagine from a place of your own worthiness, you can imagine a life that is worthy of you. The word worthiness came in twice. It's been coming in, and so it's very important that I point that out right now. There's so many of us globally that secretly are afraid we're unworthy of a beautiful life. We've been programmed that our mistakes, misdeeds, our low energy has made us unworthy. And we might not say it out loud, but deep inside of us, there is the wound of unworthiness, I call it. So the self-worth frees your imagination by very simple adjustment. Instead of thinking of mistakes you've made and will still yet make, because we're human, as something that makes you unworthy, I want to invite all of us to be reminded that they're unworthy of us. So as you think of something that is below your infinite worth, you say, what a reminder of who I am as a divine being, as a sacred me. This was unworthy of me. I will do better. This is the most healing paradigm for your imagination because it heals and restores your self-worth. And when you spend just one day, A, perceiving the unworthy actions of who you are, B, releasing them with gratitude so that your sacred self expands, C, you become more of who you truly are, and then you say, I truly can imagine a life that is deserving of me because I remember who I am. And when I say the word remember so many times, remember, we said the word memory. Memory was the third faculty. The purpose for memory is very one-fold, to help us remember who we already are and who we are to become. Because the word remember is to become a member again. Remember. We become a member of the divine oneness. That's all we are.
I want to take a short break from this episode and quickly let you know about something I'm sure you will find useful. In the times that we're living, we are drowning in information but starving in wisdom. This podcast, for example, you are listening to has almost 300 episodes. As you can imagine, there's ample wisdom in them. But who has the time to listen to 300 podcasts? My mission as a knowledge broker is to convert this vastness of knowledge and distill it into wisdom, into implementable insights. So I have created a special free resource for you. I have chosen the top 10 podcast episodes that offer the greatest value in 3 main categories of life. First, the top 10 episodes about money mindset and abundance. Second, the top 10 episodes about health and wellness. And third, the top 10 episodes on mastering your personal development. This free ebook is a catalog, a curated index of those top 10 podcast episodes in each category that will offer you the greatest value and in the shortest time. To get the ebook, go to personaldevelopmentmasterypodcast.com/top10. You will also find the link in the show notes. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Thank you for this beautiful and also multifaceted answer, which I'm now thinking of what's the best handle to pick it up from. You said so many things. Perception, I really understand why it's the first one that we start with discussing. It is so important. It is, if I would use my own 2 words of, it is our point of view or the stories that we make in our head about what anything means, including ourselves. And what you said about that reframing this mistake or this unworthy deed that like it was unworthy of me, it's I think a beautiful and actionable practice that one can really do it and think about past mistakes and reframe them in such a way. So thank you very much for sharing that. I also liked, I hadn't heard before about the become members again, which is, it makes sense. It makes sense to me. And I'll carry on a little bit with the mental faculties since we started discussing them, so we can briefly review the other 3 and then we'll go back to the manifesting miracles. You were saying about the mental faculties that it is something that, unfortunately, I bet if you were to ask someone, do you know, someone educated, I don't mean a random person, someone that really knows and is into personal development or spirituality and improvement generally and contribution, what are the 6 mental faculties, which is, you know, what distinguishes our brain from the other brains of the other species in the planet. I don't think they could name the 6 mental faculties even if their life depended on it.
Right, and we kind of said, and it does.
And it does. So now it's a beautiful topic, and I'm very happy to explore this today, at least, briefly, and understand these very specific elements of our mind and how it operates. So the more we understand it, I think the more we can use it rather than be its servant and allow it to rule over us. So we mentioned the perception, the imagination, the memory. Do you want to go through the other 3 briefly, just for, the sake of completeness of this topic?
Absolutely. The way I want to cover them very briefly, indeed, is to follow in the order, because it's a cyclical order of how they operate, but also in the parallel order. I'm going to offer cyclical to people that are flow people and parallel to those that are structure people. So we will make everybody happy. Everybody will belong today. Everybody will belong in this. So if I'm going one way and you're like, it makes no sense, take a chill pill. We're going to go the other way, which will be like, oh, that's what it is. Why couldn't she say it right away? Why couldn't she say? So I'm just saying, we're going to look at 2 aspects. Okay. So in the first one, we're looking at perception as a way to receive information about the world and upgrade ourselves to receiving higher information through gratitude, through starting to see the world as a miraculous so that we can imagine it as miraculous. Think of it as going in and going out, right? And think of it as a tuning fork. If you can imagine a tuning fork, one side is perception, one side is imagination. What is it tuning? It's in tune. It tunes your intuition. The intuition is attuned to the balance between perception and imagination. If you are perceiving the world as scary, you're imagining the worst possible outcome, you are in tuned through the instinct of survival. You are in fear. Your intuition has been defaulted to the biological instinct. It is trapped. It is trapped. You want to free your intuition. You free your intuition through adjusting perception and imagination. So then you're in tune with the guidance. In tune with the guidance. As you are in tune through intuition, you start receiving the guidance first by asking the very beautiful questions because the universe must answer. And then by simply receiving those answers as you're guided through them. The 3 questions I've shared with Agi and I share with everybody real quick. What's my theme for the year? What's my theme for the months? What is the one decision I am to make? What is one action I am to take to support my theme for the month in the best and highest, most aligned way? That's a miracle question. I promise you, if you do nothing else, you take this one, it's a miracle question. It intunes you with creating the best reality. So that's intuition. It's what you're into, and you want to be into divine guidance, universal guidance, God's voice, Spirit's voice, knowing your language, same concept. You want to be guided. Now, being guided brings us to will. Seneca said, willing, destiny guides them. Unwilling, destiny drags them. Okay, your divine path, what you've come to do as a soul, you'll either walk with joy or you will be dragged on through bumps. But it's going to happen. You don't have to worry about missing your destiny, okay? So the will, the concept of will is very powerful because it's a reminder of your, as I see it, all of these, there's no book on them yet. There'll be a program, maybe a book, but the will is a concept of free will. You have free agency to align yourself with divine will, with the best and highest willingness through you, or to push it away and say my way, and say my way. So that's all the will is. As you continually align yourself with divine guidance, with the universal God's will for you and through you, you are willing into existence the next step, and the next step, and the next step. And so we've covered 5, yes, no, I think intuition, perception, memory briefly, imagination, will a little bit. So let's look at the 6th one. The 6th one is reason. Now, reason is my sister challenger. If I had one that was not striking against me, but overreacting for me, it was my reason. My reason reasoned against intuition. I would get a feeling about a person, about an event. But my overly educated brain, addicted to achievements in its not so distant path, would give me a schematics of why it had to go. So the intuition would say, don't go. And the reason would come in and say, well, here is a doctor on why you should do it. I've lost tens of thousands of dollars, $70,000 on one deal, ignoring my intuition and listening to my reason. So alignment of reason becomes twofolded. Be the cause of your life. Don't live because of it. And 2, have your reason support your intuition. And you're like, I don't know how I have an intuition. Yep, back to perception. Back to square one. Perception, imagination, intuition, memory, will, reason. They're all flowing together. That's the flowy system. And in 1 minute, for the structured brain. It's really, really cool. It's really, really cool. Think of it this way. There are 3 structures of creating and manifesting your reality. One is input-output. That is your perception, imagination. Input-output, perception, imagination. Okay? Mm-hmm. The next one is going to be call to action. That's intuition, or reason. Call to action. You always want to receive the call to action from intuition and have reason give you reasons to follow it. Okay? Mm-hmm. And a 3rd one is going to be point of surrender. Point of surrender. your memory is going to invite you either to surrender to the pain of the past or to the truth of who you are infinitely. Choose to remember who you are infinitely. Surrender to the infinite self. As you do, follow from the place of that sacred infinite self. Will it by aligning the direction in your life. That is a very basic 3-point structure, right? Input, output, point of action, choose to surrender.
Thank you for explaining it in both ways. For me, both made sense in a different way, but it is great to see it approached in two completely different ways. So that's beautiful. I would like to go back, now that we have discussed about this, go back to what we started talking earlier about before digressing into the mental faculties. And it was about the actual manifesting. And we said, I think in the very beginning of the conversation, that we would talk about manifesting miracles. So what is a miracle? How do you define a miracle?
Awareness of infinite love being present. The more complete the awareness, the greater the miracle. For us, we measure miracles. For divine, they're all the same size. Just our disconnect from infinite love that creates the size of a miracle.
I love it, because you also gave earlier a definition of the manifesting, which is the possibility to transform to reality. So now it all ends up into a very detailed and specific definition. That's the word I was looking for. So I know that you are working on a specific program to help with manifesting miracles, as you call it. So let's bridge the conversation into that and discuss about exactly what is it that it involves and in what way one can benefit from it.
I want to tell you that first, that this program has been created through me for 25 years without me knowing, right? Obviously. And for all of us, the greatest message we are delivering has always been created through us without us knowing it. When we realize it, we deliver it. But my daughter, my oldest daughter, is now 25. She's just an incredible human being. I have 2 children, my 21-year-old son at the time of recording this and my 25-year-old daughter. And so when she was born 25 years ago, I was in a very interesting point of my life where I didn't feel anything was a miracle. This was pre my awareness of postpartum depression as such. We were struggling financially. I was struggling emotionally. I felt I've lost my purpose. I had this gorgeous little baby that I felt I was unequipped completely to provide for. 10 days prior to her being born, we moved into a new place and we had no money for anything. I didn't have curtains, Aggie. I had no curtains on my windows. I was laying in bed 3 days after I brought her home, feeling completely useless. You talk about lack of worthiness and how it's the most important place to start manifesting. I was like, what could I possibly offer this little life? Nothing that I can see financially, nothing that I can see emotionally. I can offer her nothing. And at that point, I had a very spiritual feeling. Now, for me, Christ is very important for me. Not only Christ consciousness, but the mission, the role, the love, the infinite understanding of that is. And what came to my mind immediately was how he actually came into this world, being born in a cave, right, with nothing. And the feeling came that if that was enough for him, what you have is more than enough for you. And I laid there and the phrase came in that became my first, now I understand affirmation. What I have and who I am is more than enough to start. I remember laying there and saying, wait a minute, I'm crying about what I can provide for her life. I've co-created her life. And that was my first aware shift into a miracle of life, that nothing is greater than what I've already done. Nothing I will have ever accomplished in my life will compare to the moment of co-creation of life, of a sacred energy entering the physical matter. To remember that moment, I started a book of miracles. I wrote down, I understand a miracle of life. I understand a miracle of life. And every so often, when I would experience a very high, powerful emotion of miracle, I would jot it down. And then when I would have lows in my life, because being a human, we have a privilege of experiencing lows. Remember, 49%? Let's write this, baby.
I like how you said privilege. I like that way of describing the lows.
We chose this. What a truly. Just realize the grief, the pain, the suffering creates the crevice in your heart that the joy can fill. It's gorgeous. It is. During those carving moments, I would read my journal for miracles. So just this year, I know people can't see it, but I'm showing it to you. We got the Miracle Me journal. It tells the story of that, and it allows for you to start writing miracles that you perceive, because it's so important to start perceiving the world as miraculous. So in the program, in the free masterclass, manifestmiracles.me, we start with perceiving, first of all, we're going to do a healing, the energy healing with mental mindset shift of starting to see yourself for the miracle that you are. Not as a shallow feeling, I am a miracle. The inner voice goes, yeah, you are. I've done that. No. We're going to do the actual exercise, practical, quote unquote, healing of remembering that we are a miracle. As you remember that you're a miracle, you start vibrating at the energy of being a miracle. And then we'll do other exercises to trigger every single one of these mental faculties to create a reflection back to you that, yes, this is a life of God's greatest miracle. I am one of God's greatest miracles. It's the truth. Why would I ever limit my life to a reflection of anything other than that? So that's the process of creation that I am pouring into that, and it is bringing me an immense, immense joy.
And an immense amount of contribution, I would also add with that. Tell us again, where can people find that?
Manifestmiracles.me. And me stands for you, for me, as me, matter surrendering to energy, mortal surrendering to eternal, material to essential, and manifesting to expansive.
We had that, I remember we were talking about that in the previous podcast conversation. Victoria, is there something you wanted to discuss about what we have been discussing? So now that we have completely failed to mention, I want to start wrapping up and concluding this episode. To be honest, I don't have any other question as such, since I am the podcast host. I mean, I have 100 questions, but nothing that feels right now to me that I have to ask. I don't feel like I want to ask anything else. So what I will do instead is allow you to close this podcast episode with anything that you feel is beneficial. Just refresh our memories. We said in the beginning of the episode our intention about manifesting a miracle for the listener as well. So no pressure there. I'm just going to leave you with the parting words.
First of all, thank you for this powerful question. Second, yes, pressure. Pressure is healthy. Without pressure, we die. Without the right pressure internally, our body collapses. Without the right pressure externally, our body explodes. We all want a perfect, loving, balanced amount of pressure. So thank you for a gorgeous pressure question, because it creates sacred space for me to share what I'm going to share. So I'm going to remove for all of us the need to be pressured in an unbalanced way and invite the miracle of a healthy pressure that allows for a miracle of life. That's not even an insight. That's a frame for the insight. The insight tonight, at a time of recording, not at a time that you're here, my team is doing a program on belonging. And I wanted to share a mind shift for all of us as a part of Mind Shift Towards Miracle. I love English language. It's not my first language yet. It's my favorite. So when you look at the word belonging, there are two ways that your mindset will decipher it. It will decipher it either as be longing. I am longing for a loving relationship. I am longing for money in my life. I'm longing for health. I am longing for opportunity. I am longing. And so many of us are be longing. We are longing. Longing is the energy of desperation. It is the acknowledgement of us not having. It is an energy of dominant frequency of lack. So I would like to do an energy shift for everybody who's listening, for new receptors of belonging with, not to. You see, we started belonging because we had the wrong article. This belongs to me, possessiveness. You belong to me, possessiveness. We're all longing for freedom, so we don't want to belong to anybody. So we're going to give us new receptors of what it is to belong with. That you know what it is to belong with peace, to belong with love, to belong with abundance. That you know what it is to belong with miracles around you, because you remember you're a miracle that you are. If you want to feel the shift for that, close your eyes. Please allow for me to witness a shift of belonging. You know what it feels like to have the highest creator's definition of belonging, and you already do. You belong here now as a miracle that you are. You belong with the miracles in your life. Your perception is open to perceive, receive, and gratefully appreciate the miracle that is there for you today as the beginning of perception of miracles that will be coming into your life. If you would like all of that, think or say yes. Gorgeous. And I invite you to let Agi know the miracle you experienced. Let's just clutter his mailbox with thousands, hundreds of thousands of miracles. He's going to do a miracle book after all. There you go. That's what came through.
Thank you very much from my heart for this conversation, Victoria. And your parting words, thank you. I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Much love.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you got valuable insights from today's episode. For your free ebook with the top 10 podcast episodes that offer the greatest value in 3 main categories of life, go to personaldevelopmentmasterypodcast.com/top10. Until next time, stand out, don't fit in,